I have not been to Minnesota in probably 20 years.
Bring gas. Welcome to Flagrant Howls, a Minnesota Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.
Okay, last night, a bunch of people braved the snowstorm that hit the Twin Cities to watch the Timberwolves do what they had to do against the Philadelphia 76ers. And they kind of played with their food a little bit. No Joel Embiid, no Tyrese Maxey. And they pull away at 43-point fourth quarter for the Wolves last night. 2 wins in a row. We have our hottest Wolves takes to go through here, and maybe even, I don't know, a couple of us might have more than one. We'll see where this goes. But let's start by shouting out our friend Wolves realtor Heather for all of your home buying and selling needs, Dex.
That's right. If you want to buy or sell that home and you have no idea what to do, our friend Heather, a diehard Wolves fan, Wolves season ticket holder, I've seen her sitting down there. She's invited me to her seats a few times. I was able to sit for the Hawks game. And in fact, if you want to go to a Wolves game, Heather, you can go to her site at wolvesrealtor.com. You can win 2 free lower-level tickets to the March 9th game against the San Antonio Spurs. Just fill out your information. You'll get a schedule magnet as well. So if you want some Wolves tickets, you also are looking to start that home selling or buying process, which is very complicated, Heather is here for you. Go to wolvesrealtor.com to score those free tickets and to get a free consultation.
Also, Judd, Parlor Bar is powering these hottest Wolves takes here today.
Yeah, and look, if you want the best burger in town, Parlor Bar is the place to stop. North Loop, actually not far from the Wolves and the Twins, so a perfect place to pregame, a perfect place to get a delicious burger and or, guess what? I've been pushing this for a long time. The fried chicken sandwich, fantastic as well. Don't sleep on that. A cocktail menu that is great. Parlor Bar, absolutely should be your pregame stop for the Wolves or Twins. Kitchen open until midnight on Friday and Saturday as well. So check them out. Great space, great time, great food.
All right, boys. I want to lead us off here with some positive fill. Because my hottest Wolves take, based on their schedule, based on getting healthy bodies back, Julius Randle back the last couple games, Dante DiVincenzo just cashing threes from all over the place. Looks like he has not even missed any time. And now your rotation goes 9-10 deep. They got to reintegrate Rudy Gobert back in the lineup here. But my hottest Wolves take is, this might sound crazy, but there is a path to 50 wins. Hear me out on this. They're 34-29 right now after 2 straight wins. If they do win their next 3 games, by the way, at Charlotte on the back-to-back tonight, and then at Miami, and then home against San Antonio on Sunday, they would get to a high water mark, 8 games above 500. They're going to be favored in all 3 of these games. But when you go through this schedule, and they are prone to definitely no-showing games against teams they're supposed to beat. I get that. The Wolves are one of the highest variance teams in the NBA from night to night. They can legitimately go toe-to-toe with and beat the Oklahoma City Thunder. They can blow out Denver on national TV, right? They can also have a game against Utah, even if you're missing some players, where they throw up all over themselves. So I will grant you that just because they have easy games on paper doesn't mean they're going to go undefeated in these. But if they lock it in against teams they're supposed to beat, let me just fly through this real quick. All right? 34-29. Charlotte should be a win. Stop me, by the way, if you think this hot take is way off the rails here. Feel free to jump in and call timeout. Charlotte should be a win. Miami should be a win. No Jimmy Butler. Miami's feisty, heat culture, all that stuff. San Antonio without Wemby, they've shown some feistiness, but that's a home game without the best defensive player in the league. Should be a win. At Denver, I'll give you a loss there. But the Wolves have shown they can go in there, go toe-to-toe. Those are coin flippy games against that team. Home against Orlando, banged up, Suggs out for the year. That team has been struggling. That should be a win. Home against Utah should be a win. The Pacers are feisty. You get 2 games against the Pacers in March. Let's split those. A win and a loss. Back-to-back home games against New Orleans should both be wins. All right, that's 8-2 right there. Phoenix, Detroit at home, feisty. At Denver, I think you're going to split the Denver games.
Sure.
So that's, to me, those are like win-win-win. At Brooklyn should be a win. At this lifeless 76ers team should be a win. You've got a at Milwaukee, at Memphis situation in April where you probably split those games. Well, that's your third loss in this exercise. Home against Brooklyn, home against Utah should both be wins. Should. You should go 16-3, maybe 15-4 to get to 49 wins if you take care of business against bad teams. When you lay out the schedule like this,
but
my hottest take is there is a path to 50 wins.
Oh, there is. There's a definite path. I have no faith. This team has been far too up and down.
I split the games against the Pacers. What else do you want?
But you're giving them, but you're giving them wins against teams that Ant historically will just not show up for. So that's yes, I agree with you. They should. There is a path. Like you did not name a team where I'm like, oh, come on, Phil, that team's far better than you gave them credit for. So you are correct. It will be very interesting. I think the most interesting thing about those 19 games is how often does Ant show up fully committed? I do think that's a really, really intriguing question. Can he finally put Finch is quoted again today as saying, we tell him don't look at the opposing teams like jerseys. Look at every team the same. And Ant's like, oh yeah, of course, coach. And then yes, there is a path. Do I trust them on a scale of 1 to 10? I'm at about a solid 3 right now. To trust.
They're gonna play with their food a little bit for like 2.5 quarters, kind of like they did last night.
Right? Can you do that?
And then they're gonna hit the accelerator. You're gonna have some nights, obviously, where you're just not making threes.
I hope you're right.
So okay, I just gave you like the high end of the range that, hey, there is a path. If you take care of business, you finish 16-3, you win 50 games. Okay, more realistically, they're going to lose, let's say, 3 of the games against rotten teams. Hopefully not more than that. They've lost, I think, 8 games, maybe 9 against sub-500 teams. But yeah, there is. If I could scale back on the hottest take version of this, there is definitely a path, even with a couple hiccups against bad teams, for them to get out of the muddle of these teams from 6 down to 10 that are all within a couple games. You could pass the Rockets. Like, that's not a piping hot take, but you're 3.5 games behind these sort of plateaued Rockets, and you should be able to have the 5 seed, maybe even the 4 seed in your sights with this schedule.
You are correct.
I don't want to hear about the play-in and dude.
No.
Look upward is what they should be doing with the standings.
But much like a child, they also have to prove to us that they can handle this, right? Because I agree with everything that you just said is spot on. But to use your term, they have played with their food so much. It's like, okay, Johnny, go do this. And now we're going to wait and see. So yes, I think that they should probably be the 4 seed. I think they're good enough to be, and they're deep enough now to be the 4 seed. And anything to do with being in the play-in is a disappointment, I think.
Was it? I think it was Howard Dean, the politician, with that epic rant. We're going to New Hampshire and Iowa. We're going to San Antonio and Charlotte. I feel like that was the only thing missing. But I mean, they have played with their food too much, where it should be an easier path to them on paper, but. I lean more on the skepticism from Judd. I need to see it play out before I think count all these chickens here.
Last year they were excellent against bad teams. They took care of business. I mean, they were excellent against pretty much everyone last year, but they were 24-6 against teams below 500 last year. So only 6 losses all year to teams below 500. This year they are 17-8 so far against below 500 teams. And that's really and that was their problem 2 years ago too, the first year of the Rudy Gobert experiment.
I was just going to say that. Yeah. Same exact problem.
The Thunder are 28-1 against below 500 teams. 28-1.
You know what'd be fun? Pull some key stats from Ant playing against those teams and SGA.
Let me see if
because I'm willing to bet SGA shows up against almost every team.
Yeah, well, he certainly gets his free throws.
Well, yeah.
Against
you know
every
what?
team. We know that for sure.
Free throw merchant, man.
You know what I'm saying?
He's the one laughing.
I'm just checking. I'll do a deeper dive on that. I don't have it in front of me right now. But, yeah, it does. Anecdotally, it feels like, I mean, last night was another situation. Now, Ant has been dealing off and on with, like, a calf thing, too. So maybe some of this, I'm giving him probably too much credit here. But last night, it's a back-to-back. It's a really depleted, bad Sixers team. Can you beat that team without Ant going full throttle and shooting 25 times and scoring 45 points? Yes. So he only takes 11 shots, only plays the 30 minutes. Just let's save it so that you can beat both these teams. I don't know. Or maybe he looked at their jerseys and was like, I don't care. It's the Sixers without
These
Joel.
guys suck.
So there's a path to 50 wins is my hottest Wolves take today.
All right.
Who wants next?
I'll tamp this down a little bit. I'll tamp this party down just a bit in typical sports dad fashion. My hottest take is this. Tim Conley's worst move, most criticized move from the 2024-25 season will not be the Cat trade. I actually think the Cat trade will, at the end of the day, work out just fine. It's going to be the Rudy Gobert contract extension. And I do not say that based on the fact that I do not think he is a valuable player. I actually do. He's slowing down a little bit, okay, but he's still defensively really good. I say that based on why he's missing games right now. He's going to turn 33 in June. He's a 7'1" hulk of a human being, and he has now missed 8 games in his 12th season with a back problem.
Yeah.
That very much concerns me, and now they're saying it's maintenance. Hopefully he's back soon, and hopefully he's fine. But the point is, when a 7'1" human being starts to deal with back problems, I don't think it can be dismissed as, oh, it's going to be fine. So I think ultimately at the end of the day, when we look at the moves that Conley made, the Cat trade certainly the most controversial thing and a fun debate. But I think you're going to have more issues down the road in a couple of years, even though he signed at a discount with the Gobert extension, than you are a trade that, first of all, got you out of the second apron, which was absolutely necessary. And number two, DiVincenzo's damn good. I'll continue to say it. He's damn good, and he's showing that now.
Yeah, okay, a couple things, though, on this one. The contract doesn't scare me quite as much because he's no longer anywhere near a supermax player. Starting next year, he goes from $44 million a year down to $35 million a year. And then it's a 2-year ironclad deal with a player option for $38 million in 2027-28, and by then the cap will keep going up.
Yep.
I know that, like, as you're just processing those numbers, driving to work or whatever, it's like $35 million a year. It's crazy for a guy that can barely catch a pass in the lane. But it is increasingly less of a burden on your salary cap starting next season. Mm-hmm. Ant makes a lot more. There would be room if you wanted to cobble a couple players together for like a Kevin Durant, and he would make a lot more money, and that's going to be rumored this summer.
Sure.
And I will also say this about Gobert. Even though he is not the same player he was last year, there has been a noticeable drop-off in rebounding rate and just defensive net rating when he's on the court. The Timberwolves' defensive net rating when Rudy Gobert is on the court would be the second best defense in the NBA when ranked among all 30 teams.
Yep.
Behind only Oklahoma City.
Yep.
So even a lesser version of Rudy brings out one of the best defenses in the NBA. And there's a lot of metrics that would show you as a preventer of shots at the rim, he is still elite. So I partially agree with you. But I will go back to what I said earlier this week on State of the Wolves Monday, which is this is a perfect opportunity for all the reasons you just said. You're making less money starting next year. Your back is flaring up. You're 32, going to be 33 years old. You should not be averaging 34 minutes a night on the court.
Yeah.
Let's make this natural transition to a 25 to 28 minutes per night player and allow more space for the younger, more energetic, maybe higher upside offensive. And on some nights, it's a 35-minute Rudy night. On other nights, it's a 20-minute Rudy night. Yeah. And this is the perfect time when he comes back to implement that.
Yeah, I'm afraid he's going to miss large patches, though. A back on a big guy is a enormous problem. Yeah, I think that Gobert, when he can play, has a role. And I'm with you. It's probably scaled back, but like defensively, especially in my opinion, in the playoffs, he can cause real problems. I'm flat out saying the contract, in my opinion, has a real possibility to become a problem because he's not going to play.
So you're worried that he might just like,
I think we're going down
his
a path
back is completely shot here.
I'm worried about.
He played 70 games, 76 games. He's going to wind up playing probably 65 or if he can play 65 or 68 games at a reduced minutes load. And still be this level of impact on defense.
I just think when a back problem starts, like that's ordinarily a bad sign. So yeah, I'm not saying if the dude can play, I'm fine with that. If what I'm worried about here is substantial time, because this type of thing tends to flare up. So if it flares up again, he's going to miss time. It flares up, but you know what? It does present an opportunity for other guys to play and to play well. That's the good side. I just think you've locked yourself into a contract for a player that I'm concerned now is going to miss substantial time in the coming seasons.
I'll throw a couple interesting nuggets out though moving forward. When Gobert and Naz Reid are on the court at the same time, which if Julius Randle is gone after the year, like they'll be on the court at times this year, but it's possible that next year your starting lineup could be Gobert at the 5, Naz Reid at the 4, and then whatever, Jaden McDaniels, Anthony Edwards, Dillingham, or DDV. But when those guys are on the court together, the Wolves are a plus 7.5 points per 100 possessions. When Naz and Gobert have played off each other really well. So even if it's a lesser version of him and he misses a few games here and there, to pair those guys more often as starters next season would not be a terrible thing. Lately in the small sample size here since Julius's return and Gobert being out, we've gotten to see the Julius Randle Naz Reid pairing at times, and there's been some slow starts and whatever, but it does open things up offensively when you've got those guys. They can both, like Julius is not a great shooter. But obviously he's more of a threat to hit a shot from 23 feet out than Rudy Gobert is. So it does give you a lot of spacing when those guys are on the court as starters. I do think when Rudy comes back, Naz will go back to the bench. And then it'll be a question of, can you steal more minutes to get Naz from, he was at like 24 minutes a game when everyone was healthy. Can you steal some minutes from Rudy with the Flagrant Howls plan? And keep Naz at least in the mix for 30+ minutes a night. So, but it's fair. It does look. I know a lot of fans would rather have seen Tim Connolly send out Rudy for whatever and keep Cat. But I would caution two things. One, I don't think you're going to be getting Dante DiVincenzo back in that deal because you're not sending him to the Knicks most likely.
No, not close.
And he's one of the most team friendly contracts in the league and one of the best shooters in the league. And also you would have had then Karl Anthony Towns, who's had knee issues, like he's getting older and he's not guaranteed to be healthy in 2 years when he's making like $60 million. But a Cat Naz Reid front court would be a sieve defensively. And this is the one thing, even a lesser version of Rudy Gobert still provides so much hidden value on defense that maybe he doesn't get credit for because all you see are these like clunky offensive moments. That there's a lot of hidden value there that goes underappreciated. So I will defend Rudy Gobert. I agree he's not the same player.
Yeah, I just hope his back.
If his back is going to flare up, the contract might look weird, but
big guys with backs.
He's more valuable than people think.
I'm very concerned sitting here. That's all I got to say about that.
You could just stop. You could just go right there, and I'm just very concerned sitting about here. Judd Zolgad, colon.
I'm very concerned.
Sitting here,
I'm
very
just
concerned.
generally concerned about everything.
I'm very concerned. And you know what the sad thing is? Every time I'm concerned, it feels like it goes exactly like I fear. Guy's out for months on end. Kirill Kaprizov gets hurt. He's out for months on end. Gobert's back. I will say it did frustrate me, and I didn't rant about this, but when Doogie reported during the All-Star break that Gobert got on a plane and like flew to I don't know wherever, it's like you're telling me a guy with a bad back who's 7'1" just got on.
He's not sitting middle seat on United.
I don't care. I don't care. I want you in the gym.
He's probably laying down on a private jet getting a massage.
I want you stretching. You know what? I would like to know that. Did you lay down Like, what was the surface? Like, this is where I come in. I'd like some questions answered on my behalf about what happened here, because he got back from the All-Star break. Should have been a nice breather, right? Got a nice breather.
This has been a great breather. Now he's been
he's been out for 8 games. Anyway, I'm very concerned. Declan.
Before Declan gets to his hottest take, I'm concerned that not enough of you have been to Bricksworth. I've heard a lot of you have been. A lot of you have been to Bricksworth before games. But if you haven't, Bricksworth in the North Loop is a perfect place pre-game, before Wolves games, maybe even post-game. You could watch away games, just belly up. They've got some of the best, most creative dry rub wings in town, Detroit-style pizzas, the signature Nas Reed Hazy IPA. I was just at Bricksworth about a month ago, I want to say, and it's just an awesome spot. It's also close to Target Field, too, so as the summer months come along here, take your friends, take your family, and go hang out. Say hi to my guy Cooper, who runs the place at Bricksworth. There's also the OG Burnsville location. Very passionate about hazy IPA. So if you're an IPA fan, if you're a beer connoisseur, stop into Bricksworth. Close to Target Center also is Kieran's, just steps away across the street, Dex.
Yeah, if you're concerned, Judd, just pony up at Kieran's. If you're concerned about Rudy, actually stand. Maybe stand. Do you want to stand? Do you want to be in the high top?
Stand. Stay stretched.
I'd rather stand.
Stay stretched.
Stay stretched. My back. He doesn't hurt then.
Stay standing at that high top at Kieran's, pregame or postgame for any Timberwolves game. They have great game day specials. They have great taps as well. Go check out Kieran's, just steps away from the Target Center.
All right, Dex, what is your hottest Wolves take?
Okay, here's my hottest Wolves take. And now that we're getting players back, Dante's healthy, Julius Randle's back in the fold, this bench is getting deeper. I wouldn't say that this is like a piping hot take, but I will say this. Nickeil Alexander Walker is by far the most undervalued and underappreciated player on the Timberwolves. What he's able to bring off the bench, and when he's had to start too, has been very solid for the Wolves this year. He was kind of thrown into that trade a few years ago, and he just continues to produce. He hits big-time shots. He had a monster game, obviously, yesterday, 32 points, or 20 points, plus 32, was hitting a ton of shots. On the season, 44% from the floor, just under 40% from three. He brings an energy. You know exactly what you're going to get out of him. He's an incredible valuable asset to the Timberwolves this year. And as much as we want this bench to be deeper, you can always count, I think, on Nickeil Alexander Walker providing you some big-time minutes.
Yeah, I think, a couple things on that. He is frequently a part of the Timberwolves' hottest lineup combinations, it feels like. When you need like a spark or an injection. Earlier this season, and it kind of tailed off a little bit, but like the first half of the season when they were playing almost strictly a 7.5-man rotation, Nickeil was part of almost all of their best like 3 and 4 and 5-man lineup combos. The biggest question going forward is going to be, how much is he going to cost in free agency versus where are you at according to like the first and second aprons? Because Nas Reed is a bigger priority. Nickeil might literally be playing himself from a throw-in in the D'Lo Conley trade to like a $10 to $12 million a year player that gets 20, 25 minutes a night on a good team. And do you have repeatable skill sets that are cheaper behind him, like Terrence Shannon Jr., Jalen Clark? This is the gamble. I'd love Nickeil on this team going forward, but the first priority has to be Nas Reed. And then you got to figure out, is he a $25 million player or is he a $35 million player, Nas Reed? Because in these glimpses where he's been playing bigger minutes, teams might say, oh, that's a 24 and 12 guy right there. But the Timberwolves' best 3-man lineup combinations this year, just net rating, plus minus on the court, the top 4 of them all include Nickeil Alexander Walker. It's Nickeil, Ant, Julius, Nickeil, DiVincenzo, Nas, Nickeil, Ant, Gobert, and Nickeil, Gobert, Nas Reed are the 4 best 3-man combos that the Wolves have. He is involved in all of them.
So he's essentially going to probably, at the end of the day, price himself out.
Yeah, we'd have to bust open the Dane Moore spreadsheet of glory to kind of see.
You got to make decisions at some point, right?
There's paths, though. I mean, if Julius, you take his $30 million off the books, and let's say they don't pursue a Durant trade, because if Julius comes back,
right,
and opts in and you can't move him. I think if he opts in, you're going to find a way to move him because he'd be an expiring and that'd be valuable to somebody to clear that off the books next summer.
Sure.
So I don't think you have to factor that in. But if for some reason you can't get rid of like that $30 million chunk, or if you're looking to clear room for Durant, there's in either of those cases, it's impossible to stay under the second apron, I think, by keeping Naz Reid and Nickeil Alexander Walker. But if Julius goes and you don't absorb a lot of money coming back in like, let's say he opts out, you're good. If he opts in, you could maybe move him for not much money coming back and then clear room for both Naz Reid and Nickeil. But yeah, like he is an unrestricted free agent who's going to be able to test the market. And if a team says, yeah, like that is the final, I'd have to think about who those teams are. The Spurs or whoever would say, yes, that's exactly what we need for 20 minutes a night.
Right.
We'll pay $10 to $12 million for that.
Pro's pro too.
Yeah.
What did your gut tell you right now about Durant coming here?
I think this is just speculation, consuming NBA media, listening to Durant talk about Anthony Edwards throughout the last several months. It's interesting that he rejected the opportunity to go back to Golden State. And some people speculated, oh, he clearly still hates Draymond Green because those guys would get into it on the sidelines and in huddles and stuff. And Draymond kind of would punk him on his podcast. But then Durant went on Draymond Green's podcast like a week ago, and they were buddy and chummy, and Draymond is on Twitter last night or 2 nights ago, whatever, praising Durant. I think it was last night. The Suns showed some feistiness. So I bring this up because the reason why he didn't want to go back to Golden State is because he hates being thought of as a guy who just like rides the equity of a team that's already a dynasty. That clearly bothered him that people thought, oh, those 2 championships don't count. So where would he want to finish? In Phoenix, it's like, man, Phoenix hasn't won a championship since the early 70s or whatever, right? Didn't they win in like early 70s? So I could see, yeah, go bring Phoenix to a championship. Brooklyn, right? Bring the Nets. Like you can kind of see what he's doing. He wants to carve his own path. Well, from his perspective, what better way to carve your own path at the end of your career than to play with the next American gunner, scorer, Anthony Edwards, who looks up to you as a player, right? You're his favorite player. And B, help bring a championship to a market that's been starved for championships, one of the least thought of franchises in NBA history. So it makes total sense from his standpoint to jump in here and be like that final piece, that secondary scorer, and ride forward. But from the Wolves' perspective, what would you have to give up? Because at this point, I'm not giving up Jaden McDaniels and what he could be given more space too in the next 2 or 3 years. If you could make it happen, giving up Julius Randle's contract and maybe like a Rob Dillingham and the Pistons first round pick or something. And even then you'd have to figure out, is it a multi-team trade? Do you have to get closer on the money matching? But I'm not giving up Naz. I'm not giving up Jaden McDaniels. But it makes a lot of sense from Kevin Durant's standpoint. A lot of sense.
That's what I was going to... I guess that's what I'm asking, though. Does it make more sense from his standpoint than the Timberwolves standpoint?
The latest rumor I saw yesterday on NBA Twitter was the Spurs lurking as a team that would try and... Because they got a bunch of interesting pieces, but if you kicked a couple of those pieces over to Phoenix, who's going into a retool mode, and they want to keep Devin Booker, reportedly, probably fire Budenholzer and bring in their third coach in 3 years.
Yeah.
But you'd have like Wemby. I don't know if Chris Paul would come back or not, but De'Aaron Fox and Kevin Durant. Think about that offensively. And then you got Wemby as this defensive anchor. Boy, the Spurs would go from being a fringe play-in team to like a legitimate potential top 4 or 5 seed in the Western Conference.
There was a piece on ESPN, I think late last week or it might have been earlier even this week, of what went wrong for some of like the most disappointing teams. And the Wolves were listed in that. And they have kind of 3 paths for them to choose, which is stay the course and lean on the youth. Another one was dodge the luxury tax, which is, Randle declining his player option. You extend Naz and Na. And then there's the win now move for Durant, which obviously the author writes that it's financially complicated. and it probably involves, sending out Randall's player or picking up the option, but then sending it out and then using some of the young talent that's there. Like, it becomes a very interesting path if they want to pursue that, because they're kind of at a crossroads. If these young players are showing up, dude, like, I think you got to lean on the youth, but how many opportunities do you have to add someone like Kevin Durant to your prime window too?
But you would have more opportunities if you were to think of next year as less of a we have to win if you go in saying we have to win the championship next year, okay, then I guess bring in Kevin Durant, but that's also what the Suns have been trying to do and what Brooklyn did, and it's kind of blown up in their faces. But if you were to go into next year and say, hey, maybe we just lean into more Jaden McDaniels like we saw the last month and a half, Naz Reid comes back as a starter, and you let that be the big three with Anthony Edwards, you could then be in a position with much more manageable contracts, much more versatile contracts, which you need to pair guys up for a move down the road, and you be below the second apron, which allows you to make trades to maybe go get a 28-year-old dude in a year or two. That's not Kevin Durant, but if Durant was like 33, I think it's kind of a no-brainer. But the fact that he's 37, 38, somewhere in there, it's a move that sounds really fun, and it would be a blast to do this show and watch those guys, and it would be so much fun. It's like fantasy basketball in real life. But is it especially if you have to give up Jaden McDaniels, is it actually making you better? And is it cutting off your window for what you could do going into Ant's prime when he turns 25, 26, 27 years old?
Yeah, I think it does sound like, a way to potentially sell more tickets if that's your desire, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, I think when you sort through the muck of the season, the Timberwolves' future is very bright. Like, I like this team. And if Julius is gone, and look, he has played right before he got hurt, and certainly since he came back, he is a productive player. But, like, if you free up that salary, I actually probably have at times more problems with Ant's play this season and the inconsistency than I do some other players. Chris Finch is being forced to play guys now, which I love. Like, I don't look at this roster and say, oh my God, it's got to be fixed for 2025-26. I look at the roster and say, no, you've actually got some really like nice, bright young prospects here, guys. When Terrence Shannon Jr. plays right away, you see something. Mm-hmm. When Jalen Clark plays defensively, the man is clamps. So yeah, the Durant trade sounds like fun. I don't know if in actuality, though, it wouldn't end up being somewhat more counterproductive than just allowing this thing to play out. And then to your point, if you can add a piece then, because I do hate the pivot to, okay, we got Durant. If we don't win a championship, it's a disaster. Like, when's the last time that ended well for anybody?
Yeah, and then if it's a disaster, then I hate being this guy because it's such a people get worried about superstars leaving, and but does Anthony Edwards then get a sour taste in the way that things went? Do they have to fire? Now it's like if things don't go well, you're firing Chris Finch and an organizational. If you make that trade, you immediately, in the eye of NBA media and fans organizationally, are in win a championship at all costs mode.
Yes.
Is Ant ready for that? Is everyone ready for that? And would you actually be a championship contending team? Durant he can still pour it in offensively, but to swap out Jaden McDaniels and lose that perimeter defense,
yes,
man.
The other thing too is in Chris Finch's time here now, like if you look at how it's worked, last season, which was outstanding, was one of the few in which the Wolves have had stability. 2 years ago, Gobert comes in. Okay, that's an entire process. I mean, that took a season to get the process down. Last year was great. And while I don't disagree with the Cat trade like a lot of Wolves fans do, the reality is it's been a process again. Like, trading Cat basically on the eve of training camp was an upheaval that was going to and did take time. So if you go get Durant now, okay, now you've got this piece coming in with all of these kids who were expecting to play. So I think that there's something to be said from both Chris Finch, but more Tim Connelly's standpoint, for next season to allowing this stability to take hold. And hopefully that is a stepping stone of what was learned through a large portion of this year, because the constant trades and the constant moves, yeah, they're fun to talk about. I don't know that it's the best thing for your franchise, though, to like continue to go down that path.
Yeah. I'll throw this out too. I think the way that Julius Randle has integrated himself in, and they've clearly been better with him on the court than off the court. Like they were 5-8 when he was out. And we had this yesterday or on Monday. 5-8 when he was out. And they're like 9 games over 500. 8 or 9 games over 500 when he plays. You know, he's what, 30 years old? Would they find an avenue to keep Julius Randle and convince Naz Reid, come play for us for $28 million, still come off the bench, or maybe they finagle it in some other way? I think they kind of like, I'm not saying I would do this, but yeah. I think they like you'd have to replace his size in some way. And the only thing with the current construction of this team is when he's out, yeah, Naz Reid starts and you see that productivity, but it's like they lack a lot of size coming in off the bench. You're missing like 30 minutes of size. So I do think their internal evaluation of Julius Randle far differs from the fans' disdain for his existence on this team.
But if Naz says I'm out, if he comes back, then you probably have to be out on Julius, right?
Yeah, because Naz is going to want to, I would assume, want to start, right?
He's going to want to.
He's going to want to get paid and start. And can you really, like, if another team offers him $30 million, can you justify paying that for a non-starter?
Right. And Julius, in his mind, has to start. So that's where, yes, if you could bring him back and pay everyone and keep them happy, that would be awesome. I don't think that's possible.
Yep. So, yeah, there's a lot to be figured out here. And I still wouldn't rule out the Wolves making a little noise in the playoffs. But this will be a really interesting month and a half end to the regular season. And we'll see what they can do. And then the offseason should be pretty wild again. So, all right, that's your hottest Wolves takes edition of Flagrant Howls. The sports dad, Judd, producer Dex, I am Phil, and this is a Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.